Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Baseball Adjacent. I am your host, Taco Josh. That right there is America's pitching coach. It is Justin Arth, and we have a pretty big episode today. It is almost playoff time. We are about 2 weeks away from the wild card series, and it is crunch time. So we're going through this week of games, and we're talking about all the series that have playoff implications. There's predictions, there's pitching matchups that Justin has gone into, there's just vibes. We are interesting. It's an interesting part of the baseball season, of course, and it's very tense if you're a fan of one of the teams that's in it. So, of course, as always, like 85% of you that watch are not subscribed. So hit the subscribe button. If you're new, we talk baseball here all the time. We do this, we do shorts, we do other videos. It's a lot of fun. Justin, how are we feeling today, dude?
Hey, this is like if you ever watched that old Fox show. Thanks, Fox, for shadow banning everything we post lately. If it's anything of yours, but we're like that old show 24 with Jack Bauer when we've got DC being taken over, or whatever, and he's got 24 hours to save the day. Like that ticking time bomb here, that ticking time clock is what's going on in Major League Baseball. We got 2 weeks left of the regular season. Playoffs are on the line, and there's one or two teams that if they don't have a good series here in the next day or two, they might be out. So it's fun right now in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a baseball fan. It's a great time to potentially be a fan of a team that's not in the bubble. It's a very, we'll call it tense and stressful time if your team is on the bubble, i.e., my Texas Rangers. And I guess we'll start there because that is what podcasters call a segue. Texas is playing Houston to start the week. Now, as you guys watch this, it is probably at least Tuesday, September the 16th. We are recording this on the night of the 15th, and the Rangers have just lost game one of that series 6-3. This is a pretty critical one for Texas to win. They are in the hunt, but they are a couple of games out of that last wild card spot, and Seattle is solo first place. So that series right there, Houston and Texas, is for the last wild card spot in the American League as we currently sit. Justin, I'll let you talk first since you're less attached to that series than I am. Uh, what do you think, I guess, is going to happen?
Yeah, so before obviously the result of tonight, I was looking at pitching matchups, and it looked like it was going to be Leiter, Kelly, and then DeGrom for Texas, with Alexander and Arrighetti potentially. It's still TBD at the time of recording, but Arrighetti's supposed to timeline wise come off the IL tomorrow, so you would assume he would probably start unless maybe Colton Gordon or something comes off the bench or comes out of the bullpen and does a bullpen game because he has been a starter in the past. And then Christian Javier in game three of the series. And you look at that and you're like, okay, if you're the Rangers, you got to have these and you got to win the lighter start. And you really probably got to win the Kelly start. So then DeGrom, Javier, you would still edge DeGrom there. But again, Javier, at least as a pitcher that's performed, has played well as of late for the Houston Astros. So looking at that series, you've already dropped one of the games I kind of coined you into winning or penciled you into winning based on the predictions that I made earlier today. And I made a lot of those predictions looking at like the Fangraph stats for the last 10. So obviously we talked about the Rangers, or we haven't talked about the Rangers. So the Rangers are 7-3 in their last 10 games. And then previously from our last podcast, they were 9-1 in last week's episode. So the Rangers have been really hot, but they've been right here. They're 18th out of 30 teams offensively when you rank them by WRC plus over the last 10 days. They're right at an 89 WRC plus, so they are a below average offense. What's been saving them, though, is like we continue to talk about. They're fifth overall in Major League Baseball out of 30 teams again in ERA over the last 10 days. The pitching is what's saving this team. And what we've seen from Leiter tonight was 2 innings kind of blow up in his face, and that cost the start and that cost the win for Texas because it looks like you're going to get maybe 3, maybe 4 runs out of this Rangers offense. and the pitching's going to have to hold everything else down. And you weren't able to do that tonight. I still had you taking 2 out of 3 games. So now that just places even more importance on Merrill Kelly tomorrow, which I'm not sure how much you trust Merrill Kelly right now. I've not been paying attention to how Merrill Kelly is pitched. I just know what he was doing in Arizona. Obviously, good guy a couple years ago in the playoffs. Now he's playing for the team that he had to face in the World Series a couple years ago. Can he step it up? Can he perform? And then obviously Jacob DeGrom's win day whenever he's on the mound, and you got to go get that one too. So I still had you taking 2 out of 3. There's still a good shot that you could, but Houston is a team that they're playing some good baseball, mainly because they've played my Atlanta Braves last series. But they're playing good baseball, and this is playoffs now if you're the Texas Rangers, and it's playoffs now if you're the Houston Astros.
Yeah, I've been consistent on this, I think in past episodes. The Rangers roster as it stands has a lot of deficiencies. It's to me not a great roster. Is it a roster that could sneak into the last wild card spot? Sure, and then anything can happen at that point as we've seen in the past. But there's a lot of holes in this roster, right? A big part of the Rangers that have played well is that people have stepped up. And while that's awesome, you it is like tonight is a night where it would have been nice to have Corey Seager holding down the middle of the lineup, right? It would have been nice to have Marcus Semien kind of rolling, right? Sam Haggerty is not a guy that people around the league are going to know, but he's been one of the best players for the Rangers this year. He's on the IL, right? So there comes a time where you need guys to step up, and those guys that have needed to, like Michael Hellman and Freeman, have done that. But it's there is a time I think that is coming, and maybe it's here. I hope it's not, where that magic eventually runs out, and I do think that this series is kind of the limit of that. Like the Rangers have to win the next 2 games, Merrill Kelly and the DeGrom start, non-negotiable to stay in. The schedule gets easier after Houston, but the head-to-heads matter a lot, obviously. So, do I think they get in? I still lean no, although the last couple of weeks have been exciting. But I guess we'll see. That's why you play the games. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Houston will stick in Texas. After this, goes on to play Seattle. And that, in theory, is the battle for the American League West. Should this shake out the way that Houston hopes that it will? I guess it's kind of far away to know for sure the pitching matchups in that, but just roster versus roster, or if you have pitching projections, what do you think's happening there? It's a big week in Houston baseball.
Yeah, so the great thing about where Seattle is in their current season and how their starters are kind of panning out is Seattle's going to give Houston their best 3. They've already pretty much said that it's going to be Wu, Kirby, and Gilbert. So that's who you're going to see for Seattle more than likely. And then the way things are kind of shaking out with Houston, Hunter Brown and Valdez are definitely going to get starts 1 and 2, and then it is to be determined on start 3. But that ends up coming back around to the Alexander start like you had tonight for Houston. So it's an AL West potential showdown that's going to be for the top of the division if the series obviously goes Houston's way, or it's going to be a series that Houston really needs to continue to hold Texas out of the wild card spot if Texas gets those 2 games back, or heck, even if Houston does take 2 out of 3 and Houston then stays hot in series afterwards with a schedule that lightens up a little bit. They're going to need these series, and the Mariners are 9-1 in their last 10. They're extremely hot. Pitching wise, they're third in baseball currently out of the last 10 days. And then offensively, out of the last 10 days, they still have a 137 WRC plus, which puts them third, just behind Philadelphia and the Athletics. So this offense is mashing. Cal Raleigh is mashing again after that kind of cold streak he had. The Mariners are a really good team, and they're finally kind of pushing themselves away in the pack of that AL West, which is what some of us didn't think they would be able to do. Like I didn't think they were going to be doing it. So, but they are pushing themselves further away from that AL West pack and making really a true Houston versus Texas wild card matchup here. And so the Mariners, again, going to throw their best guys. They're going to try to keep Houston out of the playoffs, and that might be the series where they could very well clinch the division too if things continue to go as hot as they have been for the Mariners.
Yeah, it's a big week in Houston baseball. Seattle's overperformed. I think we've said that before on this show, and it kind of feels like they're not slowing down in the same way that Texas is, I feel like, overperformed in the last couple of weeks. Seattle has kind of overperformed the whole year. And a big part of that, obviously, is that Cal Raleigh is having a historic season behind the plate. They added Suarez, they added Naylor. They are here. They bolstered their roster because they felt like this is their shot, and this is the best Mariners team we've seen in a long time, certainly. Uh, I I'm rooting for them to win the division, kind of. Maybe that's blasphemous as a Ranger fan, but like I kind of think that that's the way that it's going. It feels like the roster's not slowing down. The hitting feels better than the pitching, and I don't know the last time that we could say that about a
Yeah.
Seattle team, right? Seattle's kind of MO the last ever has been, hey, we're gonna try to win a game 3-2 or 2-1, and we're just gonna hope that that works out enough times that we're in the playoffs. Now they kind of bang, and it's kind of electric. Seattle's series before this is against Kansas City. Kansas City, for the most part, is out of it, but if they sweep Seattle, I suppose there's technically a chance. But this is like the final lifeline for Kansas City, who, like Texas, I don't think the roster is there for them totally this year. I don't trust that the comeback is happening, but that is a series where if Seattle sweeps and the Rangers even win a game, Seattle is starting to separate themselves out west. And I don't know what kind of projections you have for that one, or if you have any, but it's an interesting first 3 days of the week here for the American League West.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll even say a little bit of positive about the Kansas City Royals. Like, you are getting three really notable pitchers off the injured list. Like, Walker's coming back from the concussion protocol, 7-day injured list here sometime in this series. It projects really to be this next start on Tuesday, which would be tomorrow when we're recording, but it may already be the day or the day after when you guys are seeing it. And then Lugo and Reagans are supposed to be back here really soon. Lugo's 15-day IL stint officially ends on the 16th, so again, Tuesday. But then Reagans was kind of projected to be coming back around this time. I think he threw 3 2/3 innings in a rehab start not too long ago, and projects to be back at some point in this long homestand that Kansas City has. So at the very minimum, you're looking at three pitchers that have been really good at times, that have been the big three, if you could call it that in Kansas City. Because again, none of those guys are, I say, not Cy Young guys. I mean, Seth Lugo obviously had an amazing year and was in some Cy Young voting last year, but none of those are guys that you expect to be top of the line starters, number one ace material for a super high level contending team. But they are guys that would be a solid 2 or a solid 3 on a team like that. So they've got potential. It's good to get those guys back, and they are getting guys back at a right time if they're going to make a push. But at the end of the day, like, it still may be too late to make that push, being 6 games back with 13 days left in the regular season.
Yeah, it'd be a pretty phenomenal comeback, which for ratings would be awesome. I just
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
know.
I've seen it as a Braves fan. Come at you if you come at the Kings, you best not miss. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah. I think Kansas City fans would be hopeful for next year. I think the pitching obviously is good enough. You hope that the lineup performs a little better next year. Um, but I don't
Spend
know.
some money
It's
this offseason.
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing for them. Can they go out and can they get not necessarily like a Kyle Tucker type or an Alex Bregman type, although that would be cool.
Take your B-level free agents.
Yeah, like go get a Kyle Schwarber or something like that potentially. Would be interesting for them, but it is kind of it's technically make or break for them, but they're already kind of just hanging on by a thread, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's a more interesting series, I guess, for Seattle long term for baseball than it is for Kansas City, I guess, for baseball, like as a general baseball, how much it matters, I guess, would be the way to phrase that for overall baseball. But still going to be an interesting series certainly. Let's stay in the AL Central. Let's go out to Cleveland plays Detroit. And we talked about unlikely comebacks. The Guardians are still in it. They are more in it than Kansas City. They're arguably as in it as Texas. The problem is Texas has been so hot lately that they've been the story, so Cleveland's kind of flown under the radar. But Cleveland is playing some good ball as of late, but they do have to go and play Detroit early this week. And this to me is truly a make or break for Cleveland in the same way that Texas Houston is make or break for Texas. This is make or break for Cleveland. You gotta win 2 out of 3 to have a prayer, in my
Yep.
opinion. Do you have the same takeaway?
Yeah, I've got the same takeaway, but I will say there is at least some positive vibes for Cleveland because, I mean, over the last 11 games, which is the past 10 days for them, they are the best pitching staff in all of baseball. They've got a 1.65 ERA through these 11 games. They're 9-2 in those 11 games. They're striking out roughly 8 guys, not walking a ton, only walking 1.8 guys per 9 innings. And they're not giving up the home run ball either. I mean, the BABIP's a little higher for a team that has that low of an ERA. But again, they're not really allowing guys to score when they are getting guys on base. So the pitching's good. The offense is smack dab league average at 15th in baseball over the last 11 days. Or excuse me, 10 days. But either way, they've got a fighter's chance because we've looked at Detroit. Like Detroit, who is so amazing, is what we've always said all year. They're currently 17th right now in pitching in their last 10 games. And then offensively, they are what? They're 20th out of 30 teams. So there's at least a little bit of an opening. We talked about maybe a little bit of complacency from the Detroit Tigers, knowing they had such a big lead in the AL Central. So there is an opening, and Cleveland has to go in with Cantillo, Allen, and Williams. And I don't know what the scores are tonight with that. I haven't looked. But they do have a shot because they get Mize, Flaherty, and then you've obviously got Skubal to end the series there. So I still think Tigers take 2 out of 3, despite them kind of playing some below average baseball. And that would more than likely eliminate the guards at that point.
Yeah, the bright side, I guess, if you're Cleveland, right, is you're not necessarily even getting Detroit's best. I mean, none of these guys are slouches, right? But Casey Mize has been good. He's by no means unhittable. He has a really good record, but he's in no way like a shutdown starter. Any major league
Yes.
pitcher on any given day can be, right? But
It's like Colin
overall,
Rea for the Cubs.
yeah, like overall, he's not like the intimidating name like a Scooble that you're coming into, and you're like, but Josh, they play Scooble on Thursday. Scooble left the Miami game early because of injury in his last start. So you know, what is he going to look like? How bad is that injury? Is it still nagging him? Do they wind up pushing him a day as we get closer? I don't know. There's a lot of questions up in the air. To say Cleveland's out of it, I think is unfair. I think they're playing good baseball. I think that there's a world Cleveland takes 2 out of 3 here. They are in Detroit. That's tough. I think home field certainly matters a lot,
Yep.
especially
And
this year.
it will, and especially in Detroit, which is one of the most pitcher friendly ballparks, which you would say, okay, advantage Cleveland, who has the best pitching staff in the last 10 days. But you could say that's also advantage Detroit because you've got 2 guys in Mize and Flaherty that have sometimes been hit around. And it's like, hey, yeah, you might have more outfield to patrol there, but maybe you're not giving up as many homers as what you've kind of been doing recently. And that could maybe keep the score down and allow your offense that has been good at times to get to a Cantillo, to get to Allen. Like Gavin Williams has been close to throwing a no hitter this year, but again, he's facing Skubal, who probably will be more than fine. So yeah, they might load manage him. They might only pitch him 5, but I mean, it's one of those games where that might be the 2-1 game that Cleveland wants, but they're probably on the they're probably on the one run scored side. Like their offense needs to show up in games 1 and 2, and we'll see how they go.
It's interesting for Cleveland because we talked about it at the deadline. We didn't really know what they are. And now the season's almost over, and I still don't really know what they are. It's like I don't know, right? Like they've been playing good ball. I don't know how. They have Jose Ramirez, who has not really been Jose Ramirez this year. And don't get me wrong, Jose Ramirez is still a premier player in baseball, but it hasn't been Jose Ramirez, right? And they have Stephen Kwan, who we thought they were going to get rid of. And they've had gambling stuff in the bullpen, and they're missing two of their better relievers. And Clase is maybe the best reliever in baseball. He's just done. And despite all of this, they're still here and they're playing really good ball. So they are hot at the correct time. They need some luck, but I think that there's a world that they sneak into this last playoff spot if things above them break correctly. Obviously, if Houston reels off, you know, 13 of their last 16, it's over anyway. But like if everybody just plays 500 baseball in front of them, there's a world that they sneak into this.
Yeah, I just don't trust the offense, and it's what we've talked about all year for Cleveland. Like Stephen Kwan can slap hit anything. Jose Ramirez is amazing as usual, even though the Jose Ramirez we've gotten this year has been maybe a step back. There's just really nothing else on that roster right now to convince me otherwise that they're going to be good enough offensively, even if their pitching is the best in baseball towards the end of the year.
Yeah, we will see. We will see. I guess let us know in the comments. Do you believe in Cleveland or not? I guess specifically the
Believe
baseball
land.
team, but also I guess the city, if you're into that. If you're like, yo, the highway system sucks up here in Cleveland. Let's switch gears here. Let's get into the National League. We keep doing AL first. Let's spend some time in the NL. The first big series isn't necessarily for a playoff spot necessarily, but it's going to be an interesting playoff preview potentially. We're gonna go Phillies Dodgers. They're playing tonight as we record this. That game is happening, and it is 1-1 in the middle of the fourth inning. It's interesting because Philly has kind of turned it on as of late. Now that is aided by the Mets have been bad, and they got to play the Mets for four of those games. Now the argument is like, well, did they make the Mets bad? Did they just beat the Mets so bad that they slumped?
I think the
Sure,
Mets are just bad.
absolutely. But they are now playing the Dodgers. So this will be a good I think this will be a good litmus test for both teams. Not necessarily for like seeding or playoff implications, but like what are we going to see in a couple of weeks when potentially these guys play in the division series or the championship series?
Yeah, I do think there is some seeding implications here. Obviously, none of the seeding changes, even if the Dodgers were to sweep here. But the Dodgers really do need a sweep here if they want a chance at the bye. But like we talked about last week, like this might be the Dodgers' master plan of not getting the bye, playing in the wild card series. And again, it's a very dangerous game to play. But we've seen too often the team that plays in the wild card series is already warm, they're already hot, they didn't take any time away from seeing live pitching, and then they just go steamroll whoever they face in the DS. So maybe this is the Dodgers' master plan. I'm going to continue to say that. Again, we're gambling pretty much here, but hey, you got Shohei Otani on the team. You're fine gambling. Um, but
Yeah.
but either way, it's I mean, credit to like Anthony Banda. Like it's a 1-1 game. I kind of penciled today in with Suarez pitching to be like a definite Phillies win, and I had the Phillies taking 2 out of 3 with them being as hot as they are. But the Phillies are throwing their three best lefties against Banda, Otani, and Snell. And Otani is still, like I talked about last week, in this May, getting into early June now in terms of starting pitching. You got to see if we can actually start to stretch him out, get him 6 innings, get him 7 innings, and pitch well because it hasn't been amazing when he's been in. He's striking out a lot of guys, but it hasn't been the Otani that we were kind of accustomed to seeing when he was a shutdown starting pitcher as well. it feels like there's at least some bullets in the armor that you can kind of take advantage of. And then Blake Snell is walking everyone under the sun. So I would still give advantage Phillies in this. One, because they're hot, and two, because I think the Phillies are just a better team than the Dodgers right now.
Yeah, I would agree, and that would have been borderline blasphemous to say after the offseason the Dodgers have had. But I guess in a bigger picture for the Dodgers, it has worked obviously because they're winning the division. It's more comfortable now than when we talked last. Because we were talking about potentially the Padres could jump them. There's a little bit of a gap now. Obviously, if this Philly series doesn't go well, that
Gaps a
gap
race.
closes potentially.
Yeah.
But it just, I think we thought that the Dodgers was going to be like a baseball ending team where it was like they broke baseball. They're too good. We got to add a salary cap. And I think they've almost proved the opposite, where spending a lot of money doesn't necessarily guarantee you that you're going to be this unstoppable team. Now, it certainly helps, right? Because you look at teams that don't, and most of them are bad. But it I guess what I'm trying to say is the Dodgers have not necessarily been what we expected them to be because we expected them to be the one seed running away, kind of as the Brewers are, who have one of the the lower rosters paid, the lower payrolls in the major leagues.
Yeah, I mean we've seen it happen before. We're looking at you early 2010s Yankees.
Yeah.
But either way, we've seen it in baseball. Getting paid doesn't mean you're going to continue to perform. It's a hard sport to go in and out every single day and perform at a high level. And the ones that do are the ones getting paid the big bucks. But again, that doesn't mean that you're not eligible for a slump. That doesn't mean you're not going to go through injuries and things like that. And I do feel like at least if I'm going to give the Dodgers any type of excuse, which I hate doing, the Dodgers have been kind of riddled with injuries this year. So, them being as good as they have been, despite all the pitching injuries, losing your major league and your AAA level guys, essentially, because again, all these were major league guys.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're throwing your AA guys that are still major league guys. It yeah, they're still putting the stuff together and they're getting through the season and they just got to get healthy come playoff time.
I will say the Dodgers put up runs at a very high level. In fact, in the league, they're tied for first with the Brewers in runs scored. It is unfortunate that the pitching has not performed to the level that they have hoped. Again, a lot of that is for injury. I still go back to the stat we cited last week, which is they're just not very good when they don't score more than 5 runs. And that's going to happen more and more once push comes to shove in the playoffs because you're going to see everybody's best. It sounds like, you're the Dodgers. You do have a target on your back. You're going to get everybody's best, in quotation marks,
Yep.
but you don't actually get people's best 162 games out of the year, right? You do
Yeah.
get people's best when suddenly you have to play Philly in a 5-game series and they're like, "Hey, we're playing the Dodgers right now with Shohei Ohtani and Tommy Edman and we got to lock it in. Otherwise, we're going home and we don't want that to happen." And your pitching just elevates itself a little bit and runs are harder to come by, and that's the worrying part to me as the Dodgers get closer and closer to a postseason berth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even have an analogy, a college football analogy, as on talking on a baseball podcast. I do feel like the Dodgers this season are a Big 12 football team. Let's maybe look at what 2023 TCU. You're blowing by everybody in terms of offensively, putting up points in the air raid offense, doing all that great stuff, and then you got to go play an SEC team in the national championship, and it's 65-7. Like that's kind of how the Dodgers feel right now. They are a team that can put up points, but they don't have the pitching currently. They might have pieces of pitching, they might have names of pitching, but whether it be injuries or just step back performances, they haven't been pitching at the level that these guys have. And if you don't do that in the playoffs, that's why I was so high on the Texas Rangers if they ever get in, despite them being terrible offensively. Is okay, pitching wins you postseason games. If you can get in and your pitching is hot, like for example, going back to Cleveland, if they're pitching as well as Cleveland is right now going into the postseason, that can win you a best of five series. That can win you a 7 game series when your top two guys are starting now 2 games. Like, you can't just be a Big 12 high scoring offense going in to face an SEC team. And that's what the Dodgers feel right now. Now, are they really the SEC juggernaut like the Georgia, the Alabamas of the world? Yes, they are. But they got to be healthy and upgrade that pitching performance come postseason if they want to actually be what we think they are.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's an interesting litmus test, I think, as they play the Phillies early this week. I think we're gonna learn a lot potentially about both teams because Philly does have some question marks in pitching too. We're gonna have to get super deep into it, but like you know, one of the questions we've had for a couple of weeks is like, what is Aaron Nola? What does this pitching staff look like post, Zach Wheeler this season? Unfortunately, is out, and that kind of changes that roster for me. So I think we're going to learn a lot about both of those teams in this series. Obviously, it happens in LA for what that's worth, but it'll be an interesting watch. That is certainly one that I'm going to try to watch at both of the remaining games in that series as they happen the rest of this week. Let's stick out west a little bit. The Giants play the Diamondbacks, and the Giants have closed the gap on the Mets, who we'll talk about here momentarily because they need to be talked about. Um, the Giants are have made up a lot of ground kind of quietly, and a lot of that again is aided by hey, the Mets have been kind of bad lately.
Yep.
Um, but they're kind of in it. Are they fully in it? I don't know. They're a game and a half out. They're playing 500 baseball essentially. The race has kind of fallen to them versus them elevating themselves to the race. Um, but they play Arizona, who themselves is only half a game behind San Francisco. So this suddenly is kind of a massive series in the NL wild card, and it's certainly worth talking about. I guess, where do you see this going in that series?
Yeah, I actually lean D-backs here.
Okay.
Surprisingly
Okay.
enough. And I've got some stats to kind of prove it. I mean, again, over the last 10 days, the Giants have been a top 12-ish offense, which is good enough to score runs, but it's what we just kind of echoed about the Dodgers. Like over the last 10 days, the Giants are 23rd in pitching. And they are striking out a lot of guys, but they also are giving up almost 4 home runs a game. And so that's difficult, especially when you play in Oracle. Like it's really difficult, and you're going with a team like the Diamondbacks that are a little hotter than you currently. They're 6-4 in their last 10, and with this series meaning so much to the D-backs, they are throwing their best three on paper at you that are healthy in Gallen, Rodriguez, and Fott. And then if you're the Giants, you've got Tang, a to be determined start, and then Justin Verlander, who all have been hittable this year. So the thing is, it's like, okay, the Diamondbacks really need to sweep here. I don't think that happens. But I do give the advantage up to the D-backs in this series. Like the Giants really need to continue to win to catch this Mets team that is metting to Pink Pony Club at all levels. But I do think they really. I do think the Giants need these wins, but I don't think they're going to get them. I think the Diamondbacks can go in and take 2 out of 3, and maybe that still eliminates them, but it keeps things interesting at least for now.
Yeah, it's the Diamondbacks, as we record this, by the way, are up 3-1 in the sixth inning in their first game of that series. Arizona has played fine this year. I mean, both the Giants and the D-backs, just so everybody that's listening knows, they are 500 baseball teams,
Yeah,
right? They are not, these are not spectacular teams that we are watching come down the stretch. The Diamondbacks are
but they're also not
75 and
bad teams.
75. Yeah.
Yeah,
The Giants are 75 and 74. So these are not outstandingly amazing teams that are trying to sneak their way in because the NL is so incredible. It's, hey, the Mets have kind of fallen down to this, and we have a shot here suddenly. And the Diamondbacks sold at the deadline, so the fact that they're still in it is kind of funny. Uh, it's going to be interesting because I kind of believe in Arizona's pitching. It started so bad. If you remember, Corbin Burns got hurt real early in the year. Erod was terrible. But in
Ellen
like
was
my,
terrible.
yeah, in my heart of hearts, I still kind of believe in the Diamondbacks pitching. And I do think that could kind of be the difference here against San Francisco, especially at home at Chase Field in this 3 game set, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, pitching is what's going to separate it, especially when now you are playing 2 weeks worth of playoff games to try to get to the postseason. And the Diamondbacks don't have an easy series right after this Giant series either. So they are playing postseason games right now.
Yeah, so let's fast forward for both of these teams. We'll talk about maybe not in one stretch, but the D-backs go on to play Philly after this, which is a toughie, and then the Giants go on to play the Dodgers, which is also a bit of a toughie. So, I guess looking at both of those, which series for the Diamondbacks or the Giants do you feel more confident in? Which team do you feel more confident in for the weekend series?
It's sacrilegious as an Atlanta Braves fan to say this, because of how hot this team is. But I, again, feel like I've got to give the upper hand to the Diamondbacks between these two series. And a lot of it is just looking at what the projected pitching matchups are. So, again, Phillies are extremely hot, but the Phillies are projecting to throw Bueller, Walker, and Nola. Taiwan Walker has been amazing at times. He's, again, I think recently kind of kicking back to the really good form we saw about a month or two ago. But Walker Bueller was sent down to AAA. We know what Nola is right now. Like it's not very good versus what the D-backs are throwing is Nelson, Gallen, and Rodriguez. Like that is me again saying they're gonna give only 4 days rest to Gallen and Rodriguez, knowing they took 2 out of 3 in the previous series and they've got to have these wins like they're playing postseason baseball. You could still end up having a TBD start and push Gallen back to his normal start, which would have been Game 3 against Nola. But again, I could see them doing that. But I do think they'll throw everything at the wall and take 2 out of 3 there. Now, moving on over to the Giants Dodgers series, the Dodgers have Yamamoto, Kershaw, and Glasnow projected to pitch in that series. And again, Kershaw and Glasnow have been hittable, but we know what they are. We know what their resumes are. Logan Webb does start Game 1 for San Francisco, and Robbie Ray does start Game 2, but that's Webb versus Yamamoto. That could go either way in a really good pitching matchup. Ray versus Kershaw, advantage probably Ray, but again, you still have to face Glasnow in Game 3 versus Ting in Game 3. So I would still give advantage Dodgers there, and that's solely based on name power. But again, like if the Giants are to go in to that D-back series first and take care of business, these games mean even more, and the Giants might be able to throw some more at them to try to take down the Dodgers and pull back a gap with the Padres or pull back a gap with the Dodgers or try to get that very last wild card spot. Obviously, with the Mets being as bad as they have been recently.
Yeah, I think I'm a little more optimistic on the Giants, as contrary to you. I I just think that the hitting for the Giants is slightly better than the Diamondbacks, and I trust the Dodgers less. Is really what that comes down to. I know the pitching matchups and all that. You just spouted them. I think when push comes to shove, I trust the Giants roster with Devers and Lee and Chapman and all the guys in that roster now more than I do the Diamondbacks, who, they still have Corbin Carroll and they have Perdomo, they have like we could name the rosters, right? But I
Yeah.
trust the Giants roster a little bit more in this situation than I do the Diamondbacks. Even though I trust the Diamondbacks pitching more, I just think that the Dodgers right now are going to be easier to sneak 2 out of 3 from than the Phillies will be potentially.
Okay. Well, and we talk about offenses. I'll throw out the stats between and compare the two teams real quick between their last 10 games. So going back to September 4th. So the Diamondbacks are a top 8 offense in baseball over that stretch, and the Giants are a top 12, and their numbers are almost identical. 9.3 walk rate for Arizona, 9.9 walk rate for the Giants, 21.8 K rate for the D-backs, 21.5 for the Giants. A 163 ISO number for the Giants versus a 137 ISO power. So again, both aren't really hitting for power, but obviously now advantage San Francisco between that stat. But you go to everyone's favorite WRC plus, 107 WRC plus for Arizona, 98 for, 98 for the San Francisco Giants. And then the Diamondbacks are beating out the Giants in total WAR as well with a 1.8 to a 1.0. So offensively, it is edge Arizona. Pitching wise, it is advantage Arizona. And if they throw all their guys at it, the Phillies, you're at least only getting Taiwan Walker, if that's something that you could really say, versus you have to face Kershaw, you have to face Yamamoto, you
Yeah.
have to face Glass now. So at least for a series when you gotta have it, I'm still putting my money on the Diamondbacks.
I think that's fair. I think my thought is at any moment Devers is a game-changing player, and Adames is still on the field,
Absolutely.
and Jung Ho Lee is still on the field, and Matt Chapman is no slack. Like, I just, and maybe it is just name power and not necessarily how they've gone the last 10 or so days. I think as a lineup collectively with, Patrick Bailey, and again, we could name the whole roster. I'm not going to, but I trust San Francisco's a little bit more that their guys could just turn it on in the same way that it feels like Arizona's in the last 10 days have turned it on. I think at any moment, Devers just remembers, like, oh yeah, I'm that guy. I remember how to do this. And he just reels off, I don't know, 8 extra base hits this week or something crazy. Or Willie Adames snaps back into reality, or Jung Ho Lee. Like, anything could happen, and I just trust that the Giants are going to be able to flip their switch a little bit easier than I trust the Diamondbacks to maintain having their switch on with the rosters that are assembled.
Yeah, and that's fair. But Perdomo has been amazing. Corbin Carroll has been one of the best players in baseball over the last month or so. So I mean, again, maybe not the name power, but these are still stars in their own right, and they're performing well, and they've performed a lot better overall over the course of 140 games or something that
Yep.
they've played currently, 40 something that they've played.
Let's talk. We've kind of tap danced around them. Let's talk about the Mets now. The Mets, it has gone bad lately. I
Yeah,
feel qualified to say that. I don't think anybody in Queens would push back against me for saying, hey, it's been kind of a mess the last handful of days. The bullpen has not been good, but don't worry because the lineup has also not been the best, we'll say. Um,
either has starting pitching minus two guys.
yeah, so they get the Padres early this week. The Padres are second place in the NL West. Obviously, no slouches. We talked about the Phillies Dodgers being a good litmus test. I think this is a great litmus test for the Mets. I think this is obviously a more important series for the Mets than it is the Padres. For the Mets, it's almost kind of feeling like, hey, we got to win at least 2 out of 3 here because A, we got to stop sliding and get right for the playoffs. B, if we don't win 2 out of 3, somebody in the Diamondbacks Giants series is going to win 2 out of 3 just because that's the way that baseball works when you play a 3 game series. And we're going to be actually in a dogfight versus they still have a little wiggle room, but not a lot right now. I think we're going to learn a lot about the Mets this week and what they have like internally and the kind of fight they have, which obviously every team is like they want to win, right? It's like it's bad when you're like, the team doesn't want to win. Every team wants to win. But like what can you do about it when it's not going well? And I think we're going to figure that out about this Mets team.
Yeah, and with this three-game series against the Padres, at least from a name power perspective, the Mets and the Padres are throwing their three best guys. Now, obviously, the best two performing pitchers for the New York Mets are not pitching in this series. They would be in the following series. But you've got Holmes, Peterson, and then obviously everyone's favorite Jonah Tong in terms of the high rising prospect. Those would be the three for the Mets. And then for the Padres, you're getting King and Pavetta and then Dylan Cease, who again has not been very good this year, but the name power is still there. But to sit down and break down the Mets in this kind of 2-8 stretch, and it's been longer than the last 10 games, but like I'll just take again the stats from the last 10 games or 10 days. 2-8 in their last 10. Obviously, like I make the jokes with Frank the Tank, they're over here partying to Pink Pony Club. The team's got a 79 WRC plus, an 8% low walk rate, a 29% K rate as a team, a 133 ISO power rating in their last 10. Juan Soto and Brett Beatty are really the only performing players offensively that are actually getting meaningful games. Like Ronnie Mauricio's up even higher than the two of them, but Ronnie Mauricio's only played 4 games in those 10-game stretch.
Hmm.
Lindor is walking a lot, but it feels like Marcell Ozuna, or at least how Marcell Ozuna was at one point in the year for the Atlanta Braves, where he's walking a lot, but he's barely above league average in terms of WRC plus. Marte, Alonso, Mullins, Nimmo, McNeil, they're all under a 68 WRC plus in the last 10 games, which is not good at all. Then you move over to the starting pitching. Like I said earlier, like the big names, the big three that people want to point to being their best three in terms of name power are the worst performing three in their last 10 games. McLean and Sproat are the ones that have
Yeah.
been the good ones over the last couple games or over the last 10 games. But their staff, despite striking out a ton of people, they're the 26th best ERA in baseball as a staff. And that includes, again, the bullpen, who's been really bad. They're almost walking 4 batters per 9 innings, and they've got a 350 BABIP in terms of who they're facing and a 14% home run rate. So things are not good in Queens. And I'm loving every single minute of it. Every single Frank the Tank video on Twitter brightens my day even more than this blooper bobble body right here.
Here's the deal with the Mets, and I think it's important. Obviously, they perform well in this series. This weekend they get Washington, so it gets easier for them versus the two teams trailing them. And there's another team we need to talk about after this in Cincinnati. It gets easier for the Mets. It doesn't necessarily get easier for the Giants or the D-backs, right? Like you can kind of pencil in probably at least 2 out of 3 against Washington, because Washington, I'm sorry, Nats fans, cover your ears. They're not a great baseball team out there. They have exciting pieces, absolutely. They have James Wood, they have Abrams, they have, you know, they have people that play Major League Baseball, but it's not a great roster. It's not like you're rocking into Philadelphia when you're rocking into playing Washington, right? Those are two different tiers of teams. So it does get easier for the Mets, but they do have to start winning games, because the way it's going right now, at least last week and the week before that, those are very losable games, and you need to start winning the games you're supposed to win. That's going to be step one for the Mets. Is I think if you're a Mets fan, you have to win, and this is such a low bar. I understand that. You have to win 1 out of 3 against San Diego, non-negotiable. You cannot get swept, and then you have to go in and you have to win at least a couple against Washington. If you can just stay 500 this week, I think they're a playoff team. But if you start dipping into the 2-4, 1-5 range, the math gets real interesting real quick with the teams that are behind you and kind of how we think those are going to go. Because if the Mets stay 500, that means, hey, the D-backs have to win all of their games to be tied with the
Yeah.
Mets, right? And that's a difficult task. So if the Mets can even stay 500, they're a playoff team. And that right now feels pretty insurmountable the way that the past couple of weeks have gone. That would be an unbelievable thing for the Mets to do, which is wild considering they have a roster that has like Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, and the pitching should be good. Like, I don't know. I still think the Mets wind up with that last playoff spot, but they have certainly made it way more interesting than it needed to be.
Yeah, well, maybe they're just taking a page out of Broadway and creating a storybook ending here pretty soon.
Yep. We never know. We never know. Let's talk about Cincinnati for a second. They are that last team that is only 2 games behind. There's a cluster of teams immediately behind the Mets, and that group of three is San Francisco, Arizona, Cincinnati. Obviously, we've talked about San Francisco and Arizona already. Cincinnati's in an interesting spot where they too are exactly 500. They're 75 and 75 as we record this episode. They this weekend is the series that I had circled. They get the Cubs, and that is a make or break series for the Reds. There's a lot of make or break series this week. I know I've said that a lot. I guess that's my crutch, my vocal crutch, as Joe Buck was saying on a podcast earlier this week. Sorry, sue me. I don't know. Give me something else to say in the comment section. But it is a make or break series for them this weekend if they're not already broken by the time they get to that point. Do you think the Reds have the firepower to jump the Mets, I guess, in the big picture, but also be better than the Diamondbacks and the Giants who are right there with them?
I think they've got a shot, but a lot of that more has to do with my lack of faith in what's happening in Queens right now. And obviously, you look at what they have pitching wise and kind of who lines up to start in this Cubs series, and knowing that the Cubs are kind of in this no man's land where you can't really lose anything and you can't really gain anything. So you're really just trying to stay healthy to get to the postseason. So, I mean, yeah, Andrew Abbott is pitching tomorrow. The Reds have already won game one of the Cardinals series. And then in game three, tomorrow, you end up getting Brady Singer. So you get Singer out of the way, who again has won 13 games this year. He's 13 and 10, so he gets a decision every time he frickin' pitches.
Mhm.
But it's like a 4 ERA. So you don't know how that's going to go because he has been inconsistent. But on, again, name power, you get Green, you get Lodolo, and then Zach Littell, who hasn't been good since they've traded for him, but he is the guy that you traded for, and maybe it's time to start stepping up. So you get those three guys against Rhea, who we talked about earlier, or who I mentioned earlier. Again, good record, solid ERA, but he can get hit around. Imanaga, been really good, but I saw my Braves hit him around. And then James Taillon, who I have not heard from at all. Maybe he's been pitching for the Cubs the whole time, but I just forgot Jamison Taillon even existed. So who knows what he's been doing this year. So I give them a chance. Especially because this does feel like this is a 2 out of 3 type series in the St. Louis series, or maybe a sweep there. If they get a sweep and then the Mets make things interesting, like there is a shot that they could be a team that has enough pitching and enough offense to get in. But again, their offense has just been very inconsistent this year. And their pitching at times has been inconsistent this year, but they do have 6 guys that you probably could trust, even more so than what Arizona has, or even more so than what the Giants have. So, of any of the teams that's outside looking in, the Reds would still be my choice. But I do think that, again, the Diamondbacks could make it very interesting. But this is all based on if the Mets really open up that door, or if they're really just trying to tease you by playing bad and then turning it on and winning their last like 13 of 16 games.
The Reds here, they have the Cardinals, as we talked about, or as Justin alluded to. They have the Cardinals early in the week. The Cardinals are okay. They're out of it, but they're close to a 500 team. The Reds are exactly 500 again, 75 and 75 as we record this with the win tonight on Monday the 15th. Um, I don't like the Reds are confusing. This is another team like Cleveland that I don't fully trust what they are, right? Like we don't I think there's a lot of questions on like Ellie De La Cruz is one of the best talents in baseball. There is no questioning that. Andrew Abbott is having a great breakout season. The pitching obviously has been above adequate for Cincinnati. I think that's a fair statement to say. And even with all of that, we just don't really we don't know. I don't feel comfortable saying that the Reds are better than the Diamondbacks and that they're better than the Giants. I certainly don't feel comfortable saying they're better than the Mets, despite what the Mets have done lately. I do think though, if they go in, let's say let's get wild here, huh? Let's say they reel off six in a row. Let's say they sweep St. Louis and they go in and they accidentally sweep Chicago. And suddenly it's real interesting, right? I still just I don't see them as like a deep playoff run team necessarily, even if they get in.
Yeah, this feels like, and I was going to say this about Arizona too. It does really feel like, for example, like the 2024 Atlanta Braves, like a team that if they can scratch and claw to get in, like they should be happy with that. Now, obviously, as an Atlanta Braves fan myself, the that's not the expectation in Atlanta, and this season's been a failure. But for a team like Cincinnati, who hasn't been there in a while, I believe the last time they were there
Mhm.
was what 2018, 2019, maybe the COVID season they got in. I know it was 2020 because I know the Braves played them in the playoffs. So, um, it like it's been a second for the Reds. And they used to be, or they are one of the most historic baseball teams in all of baseball because they were the first team in Major League Baseball.
Mhm.
And so they've won a lot of World Series. They've done a lot of stuff. And it's like, hey, like a team like that that maybe isn't a big market in 2025. They're still a historic ball club. It's better when they are relevant, when they are good, and they haven't been relevant for a while. So, getting them into a playoff spot is probably the first step of this core really actually being something other than just being supremely talented players that underperform. So they're going to scratch and claw, but if they do get in, it's the hey, we're happy we got in. We got swept in three in a wild card series and deuces. We'll see you later, and we'll try to now use some money that we got from three postseason games, or maybe you don't get postseason games because you'll be the last one in. So the money that you get from revenue sharing of getting to the playoffs
Yeah.
could maybe be hey, that why we invest maybe a little bit in a team instead of being like lower budget spenders.
Yeah, I so but to go back to the first team in the league, I never understood how you could be the first team in the league because like to have a league, you got to have at least two because that's the way that leagues work. Um,
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that
that's why they always play at home on opening day
yeah,
because everyone says they were the first professional Major League Baseball team.
maybe they were incorporated first. I don't know. Reds fans that have made it 57 minutes in. First of all, how did you do that? Second of all, welcome. Hit subscribe if you're still here. Let us know.
Fans
First
just
major league
baseball, man.
team. One of the fights my friends and I have sometimes, and because we're this far in, we're gonna go on this tangent. Is the where was Flight birthed? It was it Ohio or was it North Carolina? Let us know down in the
Reds
comments.
fans, let us know.
Yeah, was it birthed in Ohio? Was it birthed in North Carolina? The first flight happened in North Carolina, I think, but they were born in Ohio, I think is how that works out. Doesn't super matter, but I thought it's a conversation worth having here on YouTube that we're not gonna have. That's that's a video for a different channel probably. Uh the Reds are I don't know. I think you're right. No team is happy getting swept in the playoffs, obviously. They're just you're not, right? You can say you are. You're like, "Oh, it was such a great opportunity to be in the playoffs." But getting swept sucks, right? Losing your playoff series sucks because it's kind of like you have that hope. So no team is like thrilled about that, but I do think you're right. It would be a big stepping stone for them and their core with Ellie De La Cruz and Nola McLean and like Hunter Green, like all their guys. It would be a great stepping stone for them to be like, hey, we got there. Like this is not that unattainable as it has
Yeah,
felt
it's
in the
at the,
past.
yeah, at the very minimum, it's a vote of confidence in saying, okay, this core can work. It's not like we need to go blow it up again and do another 5 or 6 year rebuild.
Right. Yeah. It's a it's an important week, I guess, for Cincinnati. And I would argue too, even if they don't make it to the playoffs, I think it's important they finish the year well and finish above 500. I think that
City of Cincinnati needs that one right now with the Joe Burrow injury.
yes. Absolutely. But I think even that, it's not as big a stepping stone as like, hey, we made the postseason, but it is like a step in a positive direction where it's like, hey, we won, let's call it 84 games this year. Like, that has not happened in Cincinnati in a while. I feel like they've been bad for a long time. So finishing above 500 for them, I think that's a step in a positive direction, even if they don't necessarily make it into the wild card round or the postseason or make a deep run. I think that is still an attainable goal. Not that the postseason isn't completely unattainable, but it is something that I think the Reds could do, and you feel good about it. You have momentum going into next year saying, hey, we're no longer the 65 win Reds. Last year, we're the 85 win Reds, and we were 2 games out of the playoffs or whatever. Like, we are only a player maybe away or two away from being a legitimate like threat to a deep postseason run.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it needs to be a license for them to spend money to bring some more talent into that roster and elevate it. Because again, maybe I'm just a biased Braves fan, but the Braves feel like they will be fine and that they will be back if they stay healthy and maybe change some things around this offseason. So you got to think that they'll be better. St. Louis isn't that bad of a ball club as we predicted at the start of the year.
Yep.
Like, there are some teams that have had some bad years that we could project to be better than them still. So it needs to become a little bit of an arms race. And if you get into the postseason, if you can find a way there, especially if you're the one kicking out the Mets, there has to be a license to spend money there, and you have to be able to win an arms race for at least a player or two.
Yeah, you have to at some point give Ellie De La Cruz help. He's one of the best players in baseball, and while he is still cheap,
He won't be
cheap-ish,
cheap for long.
right? You got to capitalize while that opportunity is there. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you to finish the episode here. Not a series we wrote down in our notes, and not really a series in general that a lot of people will watch, but Boston's been slipping lately. They were pretty comfortably in the AL wildcard for a while. They suddenly have closed the gap to being out of the playoffs. There's been Alex Cora, I think, went on Boston radio this week and was like, hey, yo, we need to stop talking about the postseason being like a sure thing because it's suddenly not
Yeah.
because it has not gone well. It's not quite gone like Mets unwell, but it's not gone well for them lately to the point that they are a bad series away from Houston jumping them and them being in that last AL wildcard spot, like we were talking about earlier that Houston was currently in. They do have, it looks like they have the A's, I believe, and the Rays. I don't know if that's true, actually. They for sure have the Rays this weekend, and they do have the A's. I'm a genius. The A's
Okay.
go to
Well,
Boston.
yeah, and that's difficult because again, you look at the last 10 games. I mean, Boston has been a top 12 pitching ball club in the last 10 games. So in this little bit of a slip, they have fallen down slightly. But again, still being a top 12 pitching team in baseball is fine. Where they've slipped up though in their last 9 games has been the offense. They're 19th offensively in WRC plus at an 88. WRC plus, so they've been significantly below average there, about 12 points below average. They're not walking at all with a 6.5 walk percentage, and they're not really striking out a ton compared to other Major League Baseball teams at a 21.7, but they're not hitting homers. And they're not really scoring runs whenever they are getting hits with a 299 BABIP, or yeah, 309 BABIP. So they're just not really scoring runs, and a lot of that happens to do with a lot of issues with runners in scoring position. So everybody goes through slumps. This team's going through a slump right now. It's a bad time to go through a slump right now. But if pitching, which again has not been the calling card of this team, if the pitching can actually hold it down enough for their team to find it, I think they'll be fine. But again, yeah, it is only like a 2 game separation currently between the second wild card where they are currently at and obviously the other teams that we've mentioned in the AL wild card hunt. So there's some opportunity there that if Boston slips up, maybe there's another spot open for grabs, and it's not just the AL West arms race here for that final postseason spot.
Yeah, Boston, it's they're an interesting group. We have talked about them legitimately the whole season. It's been the Devers stuff, and then it's been Duran, and then it's been oh my god, they suck and they're gonna sell. And then it's been like, oh my god, they're back. And then it's oh, they're in the playoffs and now they're slipping. We've talked about this Boston team so much. It feels like they'll be able to turn this around probably. I still think they're a playoff team for
Yeah,
sure.
the underlying numbers don't say that it's as bad as what the Mets are. So I still look at that and it's like, okay, yeah, like the Athletics being the second best offense in the last 10 days in baseball could be a trap series for them. And I'm not sure what game one looks like if they're playing tonight or if they play it tomorrow. I've not looked at pitching matchups or anything like that.
Tomorrow, I think.
But Tampa, again, is a team that they're now 3-7 in their last 10. Everything I said last week completely jinxed them. So Tampa is falling back out of the race. They're 3 games under 500. And at this point, I think the magic in Tampa has run out. So, and I say that, and now they'll be 7-3 by the time we record another podcast.
Yeah.
So, either way, Boston, I think, is fine, but they just have to learn how to tread water right now. If they could be 500, I think they're fine. But they can't have the cold streak now. They got to put an end to the cold streak and maybe not fall into this losing maybe 2 out of 3 to the Athletics because of the trap series. Like you got to handle business against the Athletics, and then you can do what you need to do versus Tampa.
Yeah, they can't. It feels bad using them as a verb, but you can't go in Mets right now. You have to play 500 ball, and I think that's attainable for Boston. I think
Hmm.
that the roster is certainly good enough to do that. I don't think that this is like a hey, hit the panic button situation in Boston at this moment in time. Now, should you get swept by the A's, the panic button had better be the most pressed it's ever been in the history of panic buttons. But I think right now, early week, it's okay. You're treading. If you can just tread water, it's going to be okay. You have to think. And obviously, you'd like to do more than that, but I think the first step is hey, let's get back to playing 500 baseball over the last 10 days. Let's get to playing some better looking baseball over the next couple of
Yeah.
weeks and get ourselves ready for a postseason berth. Because right now it's shaping up. We don't have time to get into this, but it looks like it's looking like they're playing the Yankees probably in that first series. And you're going to want to be clicking at least somewhat when you rock into that series. So,
Ab Absolutely, yeah. The thing is, they're 4-6 in their last 10, so they are a game under 500. But 4-6, 6-4, 5-5, they're all kind of the same record to me because that's just again a difference in one game, and we see how baseball can easily be swayed one way or another. So if they do happen to lose 2 out of 3 from the Athletics, I'm still kind of okay if I'm a Boston fan. Yeah, I'm not going to be happy losing 2 out of 3 to the Athletics, but they're 10 games under 500, which is a massive improvement for that organization. And they are the second best offense in baseball over these last 10 games, and they've won 4 in a row. So they're not a team to slouch against. Like they will match, they will hit balls, they will, whether it is the big Amish or Brent Rooker or even Lawrence Butler's turning it back on. Like they've got offensive pieces there that, again, like handle your business, get a game, 2 games, you're more than happy, and then handle your business versus Tampa. If you can't handle Tampa, then I'm pressing the panic button.
yeah. It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of ball to watch this week is what I'm gleaning from this podcast. So I guess if you've made it this far, comment down below what series are you most excited for? How's your team looking for the playoff if you're a fan of a team on the bubble, and maybe even if you're not, what series are you most excited to watch? Justin, give the people a player to comment down in the comment section below.
Well, today feels like a Nick Kurtz day. So we're going with Big Amish, the big whatever, the big slur, whatever we call him now. We're going with Nick Kurtz as your player to comment as the Athletics, Sacramento, Oakland, Vegas, whatever you want to call them.
Mhm.
We're going giving the Athletics some love.
Trans City Athletics. I think that could stick. Trans City for a few years until you get to Vegas and you're transitioning a little bit. Yeah, the comma, Big Amish, however you wanna comment that. Comment. My man Nicholas Kurtz, you're not catching me slipping internet down below in the comments below. And yeah, thank you guys for making it to the end if you did. And we will catch y'all in the next one.
Ciao, ciao, bye.